Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Miguel Sanchez World. Today, I'm talking about raising millions of dollars, right? Like, I know I had someone on Twitter say, "Is this even a question?" Like, of course, you want to raise $1 million. And what I told him is easy to say when you don't have money coming in from the business. But if you already got money coming in, why would you raise millions of dollars? And I'm going to explain to you the way it works, the way startup funding works, because it's not just, hey, you raise $1 million and you are a millionaire because you raise, let's say you raise millions of dollars. Hello, let's say you raise $3 million. That doesn't mean you're a millionaire. You need that $3 million to make the business work, right? So part of what I want to discuss today is just all the thinking that's going behind me now, because people are offering to fund Stack, and they have been for a while, and I've been putting it off, but now it's getting more and more. So I just wanted to talk through what the things that we're seeing and just the thoughts that we have. I guess part of it is I wish more people would have spoken about this stuff publicly so more people know about it. So that's what I'm doing. Right. All right. So to start out, if you don't know, I've been working on a project for it's been live for like a year and a half, but I've been working on it for years. And right now we got a bunch of customers on there from all around the world. And it's pretty cool to every day I wake up and I look at the data, I look at the database, I look at the analytics, and I see all the people using the app over and over again, all over the world. And it's awesome. And I remember thinking before, like, what do you feel like, what's a thing that makes you feel like you made it, right? So with me, the last time I felt like this was when I did an animation for Adobe, and it played on Times Square. And I remember going to see it and being like, I made it, mama, I made it, right? Because the way I thought back then was that is a big time ad, and a bunch of people are going to see it around that come to Times Square. And now going back to that thought and thinking about this now, I feel like I've made it now because I actually have people using a product all around the world that I thought of, I built, and helps them, right? It's helping people reach financial freedom faster. So that feels very, very good. And in doing that, why I bring that up is because the way funding works is investors want to give you money, but the further you go improving your idea is works and people want it, the more you can raise. So when you're starting out an idea and it's nothing, you can raise a little bit of money, but you can't really raise millions of dollars unless you're really good at fundraising, until you prove out the idea a little bit more. And right now we have proven the idea. We have people paying all around the world, like I said, using it multiple times, over and over and over again, which kind of could mean product market fit. But again, I don't want to say it's product market fit yet. I still don't feel that. So that's why I'm even having this conversation, right? Like, if I only had an idea, I couldn't even really talk about should I raise $1 million or millions of dollars, because it's really hard, especially right now. This is one of the hardest times in history to raise money. So if you're a startup founder and you have an idea and you've been working on it and you've been trying to raise money, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, what happened was when the interest rates were very low, it was easy to bring money. It was easy to get money into any business because there was a lot of money going around, right? So when you look at what's happening right now, though, there's not that as a high interest rate in loans in banks. So what that means is venture capitalists don't have enough money, don't have as much money to play with, because they're not going to have these loans with big interest, and most startups fail, right? But if you got low interest loans, it doesn't matter if most startups fail because you don't have as much as you can lose. So right now we're in a point in history where people are more venture capitalists are more protective of their money. They're not just giving money out as easily as it was the past 10 years. So that's why I am in a lucky spot where I'm even able to have a conversation like this, where people are offering us funding. And again, the way it works is you can get an offer sheet, of course, right now I haven't taken any offer sheets. I've just having conversations, and I haven't really, you know, taken it other than conversation because I'll get to where I am and what I'm thinking about as I go through this. But if you don't know, I run a startup accelerator. Um, I've run a startup accelerator for a long time, about 7, 8 years now, and we've helped companies raise millions of dollars, right? So I understand the process of what it takes for startups to raise money. I've helped startups do it. I've raised a little bit of money, not millions of dollars, for other startups, and it is hard. It is like a full-time job raising money. Like if you're going to raise money, and I know that as part of where I'm like, I don't know if I God bless. The guy put godless, then he fixed it. God bless. Thanks, man. So yeah, I mean, what I've seen in helping other founders is when you start raising money, it's like a hamster wheel you can't get off of, right? Because when you raise money, you have to keep raising money. Because what happens is most times, if you are a founder and you have a new idea, you're not really making money yet, you raise money, and then you need to raise money again because you still are not making money, right? So if you run out of that money with no new money coming in, you're out of business, right? So what happens when you raise money is once you get to a certain amount of months into the process of having that money, you have to start raising again because it takes time. It's not like I could say, today I want $1 million and $1 million just falls in my hand. No, you got to go on like a dog and pony show around the country sometimes, and it's not easy. You could do 100 meetings with venture capitalists, then many follow-up meetings, and still not raise money. So I think a lot of people don't really understand it. That's why I wanted to go through kind of what I've seen in helping Metabron startups. So one of the things is that when you choose to fundraise, you're choosing to fundraise ongoing. So you become, as an entrepreneur, a fundraiser, right? You're not only managing a business that you're trying to grow, you are managing a process of fundraising, right? So I don't know if I want to do that just yet. And right now I don't have to, luckily, and I'll explain that as well. Um, Another thing that I saw, it was I became a Laconia Venture Fellow last year. What that means is there was a venture capital firm that works with people who are in the field of helping startups, and they let you take a course with them, who their venture capital firm, and they basically train you like a venture capitalist. So I was trained as a venture capitalist for a few months last year, and I finished the certification or whatever we got. And what I learned is I already kind of knew, but once I started seeing the actual paperwork that they would want startups to sign, you don't really understand when you take money. It's not like, like, hey, Miguel, take $3 million. And I get to be like, thanks, put it in my pocket. Now I'm buying a private jet. No, the way it works is it's a loan, right? And of course you could try different ways of fundraising, but most venture capital fundraising is you're getting a loan and they expect their money back, right? Like you don't give somebody millions of dollars without expecting money back. And the truth is, what most people don't understand is whatever they give you, they expect 20 to 40 to 100 times return. So if I were to raise $1 million from investors, they're expecting 40 million back, right? So what does that mean? That means my startup has to grow to a level where their percentage of it is worth $40 million. So if you understand what that means you basically have to become a company that makes $100 million a year to pay back those investors. So that means you have to go on a specific trajectory, right? You have to grow at a certain speed to reach that. And if you don't grow on that speed, there could be repercussions. And I'll go over some of those later. So in seeing that more closely and watching and looking at deals that this venture capital firm, because this venture capital firm was really cool. They took us behind the scenes. They showed us deals that they had in place. They showed us where those deals were. They showed us their best deals that worked out the most. They showed us some of the deals that didn't work out. So it was very interesting to see a firm that does this from the other side and understand their business model and say, okay, if I was on the other side of this, I understand why they want what they want. And you got to understand both sides, right? It's a give and take. So in seeing all that, it made me even more understanding of the process. So basically, as a startup founder, what you want to be doing is you want to create a lower and lower risk profile for yourself, right? So if let's say I had an idea today and I said, look, I want to invent flying cars. First thing you're going to say is, yeah, right, good luck with that, right? Of course, right? But if I showed you a car that flies, you're going to be like, all right, I'll invest in that, right? If you can show that you can prove what you said you were going to do, then it's better. It's a better investment for the investor, right? So if you always got to think about it like if you're giving up your own money, right? If somebody was talking to you about your idea, would you give them money, right? So the more you can show, the more you can raise, right? So one of the things I always knew was I'll get it to a certain point before I even think of that. Like some startups can't even do that, right? Like if you're trying to do like Tesla, for instance, a car company, you need millions and millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. So you need to raise money to do that. But if you're creating a software business, if you know how to code or you know the developers, you can make the version, you can make that flying car. So that's what we did. We made the flying car, but then we took it to another level, right? Which is prove people are willing to pay for it. And not just once and not just a few people. So I knew that that was the next step. So that's what we did. So for the past, if you haven't heard from me in about a year and a half, that's what I've been doing. I've been on calls almost every day, bringing people on the platform, either people that are already on the platform or people who are new to the platform. I've been bringing them on, and then I've been working with the people that are already on the platform to make sure they understand how it works and getting any questions, because that helps you make a better product, right? So that's another de-risking of the idea. If I say I want to create a flying car, and the car flies, and I could put you in the car and you could fly around the car within the car, tell me that's a much easier investment than me just showing you drawings that say, hey, look, I want to make a flying car. This is what it's going to look like when you give me money. This is what the car is going to look like, versus get in the car, let's fly around, right? And that's where we were lucky enough, because me and my co-founder come from development. We were able to build the flying car. In our case, it's a working app, a blockchain app that helps people use their money twice. You bring your money in, it borrows against the money. I mean, you bring your money in, it borrows against the money, it invests in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then over time, the Bitcoin and Ethereum price goes up and down. But basically, you're using your money twice, and you're buying an asset that will grow in value, and you've already taken most of the money off the table. So it's a win-win. And I won't go too deep into the actual project, but it works. If you want to join the waitlist, go to stackit.ai/MSW. I'll push you to the top of the waitlist. Okay, so as you de-risk the idea, more and more investors are going to come, right? So this is what's been happening. In the very beginning, once I had the app made, investors started, because again, I work with MetaBronx, so we talk to investors. So they started telling me, hey, I'm interested. I'm willing to write a check. And again, I didn't really need the money at that moment. So I didn't want to just take money to take money. That's another big thing. You don't want to just take money, because if you take money, you don't understand the stipulations. Most founders just don't understand the stipulations. And I'm going to go through a little bit of them in a few. So I didn't need it. So I told them, I said, look, right now we got it. We're trying to get to product market fit on our own as far as we can. And then we'll decide if we're going to take venture capital. So what product market fit means, and this is another big thing. And again, research this stuff. This term, product market fit, is the biggest term you could study as a startup founder. It basically means you have a product, So again, if we take the flying car idea, right? Let's say we have a flying car. That's the product. Now, what's the market that's going to want that car, right? So let's say that car is $100 million car. Who's the market for that car? It's not people who make 50 grand a year, right? It has to be probably billionaires, right? So there's a market and a product, and you got to make sure they fit, because if you can make sure you created a product and there's a market that wants it and is going to keep wanting it, then you can get to the $100 million company, right? So what startups in the beginning have to do is kind of think, what do I believe this product and this market are? So for us, we've gone a little bit back and forth many times on each side, right? And we're still thinking it through. So for us, when we first started out, I'm a creative. I'm also an entrepreneur. So I built it for me, and my co-founder is the same. So when I built it, I said, I'm doing this for me and people like us, who creatives, entrepreneurs, because we know how hard that is. We know how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. And when you're a creative, you probably work a job you don't really want to be working, but you need money, so you have to work it, right? So for instance, I know a lot of us advertising agency vets, we didn't come at creative work wanting to work in advertising agencies, right? We wanted to do our own movies and cool stuff, but we needed money, so we went and worked for agencies. So when I created Stack, I was thinking like that. I said, okay, for people like I wish this would have existed. So we started out with creatives and entrepreneurs, but then something started happening where traders started coming to us, and a trader that buys and sells stocks and crypto. A trader put $1 million into the app to use it. And when that happened, we were like, should we change our product market fit? Should we go after traders? Because it's very hard. Right now, it's been very hard for us to explain what Stack does, get entrepreneurs to understand investing, because most entrepreneurs do not understand investing, but they need to. So part of what we're doing is we're like, we have to teach people about this, because the sooner they understand it, the faster they will get to freedom. Just like if we would have known it earlier, we could have got there. So we have to teach people, but it's hard. We have to educate. Versus a millionaire, they already get all the concepts that we're talking about. They're just like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Let me put my money in. Versus the market that we're going after has to be educated. And it's a pain to educate a market. So that's where it's hard. But at the same time, I didn't build this for just to make $1 billion. I want to help the people that are like me and how I was. So we're fighting through that, making sure we educate. It is harder though. We could easily just say, let's focus on millionaire traders and just make a lot more money, easier. But again, I also think it's better to do the harder things, right? Because if I take the easier route, another competitor could come in and take the same easy route. If I take the hard route, a competitor is going to come in and say, that's hard. I don't want to do that. But if I'm already doing it and we're already going and doing well in that harder way, then competition is harder. Harder to come by. It's going to happen anyway, no matter what. But if we go through the swamps, then they might not want to follow us, right? And that's how we see it right now. But again, things may change. So product market fit is where, when you are thinking of your idea, you got to say, okay, I want to make flying cars. I think only billionaires are going to be able to buy it. Let me start meeting with some billionaires, right? So that's what we did. Of course, we know a lot of entrepreneurs. We know a lot of creatives. So we've been doing that, and we've been getting people on the platform, getting them to reuse it. And it's been working. And that's why now I have a little bit of product market fit data to be able to show investors. So I know we're a de-risked startup, right? Like, it's not just a drawing on a napkin. It exists. We could take them around in the car and fly. We could show them other people who are flying in their cars. So it becomes easier to raise money, because most people don't get to those things, right? And a lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurs treat fundraising as the end all be all. And the way I like to think about this is it's like getting to the NBA and celebrating, oh, I got to the NBA, I made it, but then you really never play in a game, right? And that's where I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make fundraising the goal. I wanted to make playing in the game the goal. And if fundraising came, it came. And now it gives us more leverage in negotiations anyway, right? Because again, if most of the startups they're talking to are don't have a product, don't have a market, don't have any product market fit at all, and we have at least version 1 of all of those, we're a better investment, right? And again, that still doesn't mean it's easy. So one of the big things I think a lot of people need to understand about raising money is just because I raised the money doesn't mean I'm rich, right? So if tomorrow you read something that says Stack, Miguel, and co-founder Francis raise $5 million, that doesn't mean we get that $5 million. And that's where what you got to understand is, what are you going to do with that money, right? So if we get $5 million tomorrow, we have to grow the team. So let me just do some quick math for you so you understand. Let's say you hire one person and you pay them decent, because in a startup, you need high-level people. Let's say we need a very good developer, and that person, man or woman, is willing to take a pay cut, and they're willing to take $150K. As a company, you don't pay $150K for a salary employee. You pay on top of that. You got to pay insurance. You got to pay all kinds of different things. So my real cost as an entrepreneur is probably closer to $200K, one person, right? So I raised $5 million. That needs to last for a while, right? So if I have one person taking up $200,000 a year, that means in 5 years, that person takes up $1 million, one person. But again, when you raise money, you need to be raising money almost every 18 months because of this. So let's say I just have one person. I just told you one person is going to cost $200K a year. That's just one person. Let's say we add 5 people to the team, average about the same salary. It's $1 million a year that just goes to salary, doesn't go to advertising, partnerships, cost of servers, right? Because as you start getting more and more customers, your cost is going to go up, and you got to have money for that. Lawyers, you got to pay lawyers, you got to do this, you got to do that. There's all kind of costs. So when you start taking in money, it's kind of like a continuous thing. So what I think entrepreneurs really need to understand is, when you raise this money, before you take it, have a very good plan what you're going to do with it. Because if someone came to me right now and said, all right, Miguel, I'm willing to give you $5 million, I understand what we would do with it, but I don't know if they would agree, right? Because again, my business is a different kind of business. Crypto has cycles. So right now we're heading into the big cycle, which is usually next year. But then crypto has like a 3-year down, and then the 4th year comes back. So if I was to take money, I want to survive those 3 years. I would be taking that money to keep the company alive for those 3 years. But a lot of venture capitalists don't want that, right? When you take venture capital, you're supposed to grow at all costs. So I'll explain a little bit. I'm going to give you the pros and the cons, and that's one of them. So a pro to raising money. Money helps you be calm, right? Like every day we wake up and we're like, all right, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to pay for this, we got to pay for that. Let's look at the revenue coming in, and can we afford that? If there's money, you got $5 million in the bank, you got to think like that, right? You can be like, all right, just do it. Pay that person, do that, do this, do that. But again, that also makes it so you can make a lot more mistakes. When you got the constraint of the money that's coming in through the business versus this pile of money that just is investor money, those are two different ways of choosing to do things. And what they say is, a lot of people who take venture, they start to like spend money too wild, and then they run out because it's not their money. But with us, because we're getting the revenue and we know how much revenue has been coming in, we can decide to do things based on revenue. So we are making decisions based on our money, right? So I think one of the pros to raising is that you get that calmness of, right, I don't need to worry about money. But that also could be a con, right? Because you can end up overspending very easily because it's not your money. And that happens a lot with founders. Another, what's up, Ernie Ivado? George, we gotta connect. So another thing is, right, I just told you, you can hire more people. That's a lot of the reason people take venture capital. They'll take the money to grow the team, because a startup is nothing without the team. A lot of times the investors are mostly investing in the team. And if you're a startup founder, you need to understand that and try to build a team, because when you start talking to investors, they want to see the team. They want to understand the team they're investing in, and then knowing that when you get this money, you're going to grow the team. So right now, as I told you, it's an expensive time to grow teams, right? Because inflation. So and a lot of people are depends on where they are. They want more money based on what their skill set is, depending on what you need. It's a tough time. It's a tough time to raise money from venture, but it's also a time when a lot of people are being fired from the Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world. So these people are used to making $200,000-$300,000 a year, and then they're coming to you, and you're like, hey, can you work for my startup for 150K, 200? And that's wasting a lot of your money, because you just raised this money, but it got to go for a certain amount of time. So if you're hiring somebody from Google and they have a salary in mind that's huge, and you're like, I can't really afford that, but I want to make sure this person works for me, it becomes a hard decision to make for a lot of people. And again, we already have this working, so why would I speed up the process for that? Like right now, I don't really need that. So part of me is like, yeah, I would love to grow the team, but I'd rather grow it organically, like through having sales to pay people. Again, things could change. Don't ever don't look back and you see an article of me raising money and be like, you said you weren't. Because that's another thing. As an entrepreneur, every day we wake up and we're like, what is the fire of the day? What is the most important thing of the day? And if one day I think money is, then I'll raise. And I'll call the people up that said they would like to invest, and be like, all right, we're ready now. So that's another thing. Always have the option to change your mind, and it happens a lot. Another big pro is advertising, right? So one of the big things is, right, when you're first trying to figure out product market fit, you need people, right? And most people are not early adopters. So you're not going to get a lot of people that's going to try a new idea, especially if it costs money. So you're going to have to talk to a lot of people or run ads. Again, I had a constraint because I was doing crypto, and crypto, they don't allow crypto ads. So I couldn't even run ads if I wanted to. So I needed to talk to people or create content like this to draw people in that were interested, and then have the conversations with them and see what they liked or they didn't like about what we were thinking about and what we were doing. But again, if you are a startup that can run ads, you could just spend the money and get thousands of people to come in and test your product market fit. And that's where, as an early startup, you could speed up the process by doing that, right? So if, like, for instance, for us, we've spoken to a lot of people, but if we were able to make advertisements, we could have spoken to thousands of people, because just with a Facebook ad, you could put $500 and get 10,000 people, right? And that's where, again, imagine spending $500 a day for a year, right? That's where venture capital comes, right? That's good. That's a good way to do it. Another pro for venture capital and raising money is you don't have to charge money for your product. So there's a pro and a con to this, though, because if you look at the Facebook, look, whatever you're watching this on, it's a free product. Well, unless you're watching on Twitter, well, Twitter too. You could pay for extras, but everything is free in social media. But that's because they took venture capital. It wasn't because it didn't cost them money to run their app. It cost them a lot of money to run their app, but the venture capitalists pay for it. So they were able to give it to you for free. So one of the hard things for us is we charge from day one. because I didn't want to be in this situation where people love the product, but then by the time I'm like, all right, we have to charge now, they're like, oh, I don't want, I'm not paying. Because if you think about it right now, the apps you're on right now, you use these apps a lot. But if they said tomorrow it's going to cost $10 a month for you to use this, 99% of their audience will go away. And that's just because it was introduced as free. And if you change that, you're going to lose people. But if you introduce it as costing, then they bought into the cost. Yes, you could either raise the price or lower the price, and that's a decision the customers are going to make. Like whenever Netflix raises the price $1 and people flip out, but they still do it, right? But when you heard way back in when Facebook and Instagram, they were talking about charging money, people were like, oh, I'm not using it anymore if they charge. So again, you gotta really think through that as an entrepreneur. And I did. And I said, look, at the end of the day, this is helping people and it's making money for them. I'm going to charge. And if they don't want to use it, they don't want to use it. And it worked. And I know a lot of people early on were like, no, you should do it free. You should do it free. And I'm like, again, you don't even understand what that means. So you don't understand the full length of what that means from start to finish. So one example is WhatsApp. WhatsApp, if you can look up the story of WhatsApp. I won't go too deep into it, but WhatsApp started out free, and they tried to add up a cost, and people flipped out. Nobody wanted to pay it, even though it was like billions of people were using it. They tried to introduce a small fee, and it was optional, and people flipped out, and it led to them having to sell the company to Facebook. And you can watch the documentary about it, and even the founders say, we wish we didn't do it the way we did it, because we were locked into the choice of selling it to Facebook, and then Facebook took it and didn't do what the founders wanted them to do. So the founders were like, we wish we didn't sell it to Facebook. He literally says it. You can look it up. But he had to, because of the way they started the company. The way they started the company was they took venture capital, they gave it away for free, and then they got so many users that they couldn't keep up with the server costs. They had to take more and more funding. And then it got to a point where Facebook came in and said, we'll give you $19 billion for this. And their investors were like, take that, because that means I get not 40 times, not 100 times my money, but like 1,000 times my money. So imagine the people who gave WhatsApp $1 million and they're getting $1 billion, $2 billion, right? So this is where, again, you got to understand all this stuff if you want to be in this game. And I do, and I'm making decisions, but again, I wanted to talk through it so everybody could see and learn from it. Another idea, another pro to raising money is you can create partnerships, right? So one of the things is, let's say there's already a business that brings in a lot of customers that's in your market. So for instance, for us right now, it's entrepreneurs and creatives. If there was a platform that had a lot of creatives on it, we could create a partnership with them, but not just be like, hey, why don't you partner with us? It's like, no, we're bringing money to the table to create a partnership together. And again, that takes money, right? So if you don't have 100K to create a partnership, it's hard to create one. So imagine me going to Adobe and saying, hey, you have creators, right? Why don't we work together so every time they pay the Adobe bill, they stack it? So not only are they investing $100, they're also paying for Adobe every month. And now, as a creative, every month, they're investing in their future. And over time, they could be free. Adobe's going to be like, yeah, right. But if I came to Adobe and say, I had $100,000 to create some type of partnership, they're going to at least listen. Adobe may not, but smaller companies may. And that's where, the money does come in. How I've seen this work is celebrities. So like, let's say I can go to Kim Kardashian and say, hey, Kim, promote Stack and I'll give you $100,000, right? Show that you use Stack every time you buy something, right? That's a partnership. But again, you need that money. And that means as a company that's making revenue, we would need to make the money it costs to run the company plus an extra 100,000 to pay that partnership. So that's not easy in the early days, right? Because in the early days, you're scrapping. So that's another pro, right? And again, I understand like the good and bad of it. And I still think it's better to grow organically, especially until you got product market fit. I'd rather talk to customers every single day than run thousands of ads and not know those people and not be able to have conversations with them. The people that are coming to us, they're coming because either somebody who uses the app told them about us, or people that know us, me or my co-founder, are coming to us. And yes, sometimes we talk to people that we already know, that we know, we're like, this could really help this person. Let's see what they think about it. So we've reached out to those people, creatives, entrepreneurs, and say, hey, I want to show you what we're doing. And a lot of those people turn into customers, right? And again, with another good thing about the product, the way we built it is you could try it with any amount. You could try it with $10. You could try it with $10,000. So they can test it at their own levels. So another thing about, charging is, depending on how much you charge, some people may not want to do it, right? So if we had a startup that charges $1,000 a month, some people are just not going to try it, right? But if it's a startup that costs $20 a month, more people will try it. But still, even $20 a month, like I told you, people were talking about not using Facebook if they started charging $10 a month. And billions of people use Facebook all day, every day. But if they would just charge $10 a month, they would stop using it. So it's not easy to just say, hey, we're going to charge X amount and hope people pay. Another big thing that I don't think people think through enough is the fee you charge is not what you stay with, right? So a lot of times when you charge something, there's all kind of fees that go between the customer and the entrepreneur. So like if you run a credit card, if you process through certain processors, you get percentage points down and down and down, and you end up staying with a certain amount, and let alone taxes, right? So you want to think through all of that as you do it. But again, when you're taking venture capital, you don't got to worry about any of that, because you say, hey, we'll figure that out later. But that could be a problem, because if you're trying to figure something out later and then people are like, I don't really want to pay now. You got me hooked on this, but I was doing it because it was free. Now that it costs anything, I don't want to do it. So again, we took the route of, if you don't want to pay, you don't use it. It's cool. We'll survive. And it's working. All right. So now let's go to some of the cons. Yeah. All right. So the cons. One of the cons is, it's not easy to raise money. I know I'm talking like, hey, it's just when you raise money, but it's very, very, very difficult to raise money. Even not in this, today we're in one of the worst times in history to raise money. But even before that, it was hard, especially if you were a minority founder, like I am, my co-founder is. So historically, that's why we created Metabronx, because we saw that it was very hard for startup founders that weren't white males to raise money. So in doing that, and we were able to help some not white males raise money, I saw the process they had to go through, and it was tough. Like basically what it means is, you go on a multi-month full-time meeting run and then try to follow up with hundreds of people, hoping that you get one offer sheet. Because there's two types of investors. There's lead investors and there's follow-on investors. So if you're a startup founder, your first goal has to be to find a lead investor, because you'll get people that are saying, oh, I'll invest in you, but after you get the lead investor. So that means they only wait till you got some bigger company to give you money before they will. And the reason they do that is because they get to do less due diligence. Due diligence means, let's go back to the flying car. I tell you, I'm going to make a flying car. The car is there flying. You got in the car, you saw it fly, but you don't know what the regulations are going to be on this flying car. If this car is ever going to even be legal to be used, right? So things like that, they'll wait for the bigger companies to do that kind of work, because that costs money. So if you're a smaller fund, and I'm going to explain how funds work too. If you're a smaller fund, you don't want to spend money trying to figure things out. You rather, it's safer for you to wait till you see other big firms, and they most likely did that due diligence, then you follow them. But that could come back to bite you, right? Because if you look at it, FTX, that again, whenever I'm talking about crypto, there a lot of people are like, yeah, but what about FTX? FTX, they raised money from the top firms, and everybody thought they did the due diligence. So then they started investing too. Everybody was trying to invest in FTX because they thought the big firms did the due diligence, but they didn't. And that's why it was a collapse. So the way funds work, just so you understand how a fund works, because like I said, it's good to understand both sides so you know why they do what they do. So the way a fund works is people will go and ask rich people for money, right? And they say, look, we're going to invest in companies that you can't see because you're so busy being rich doing other stuff. Give us your money. We'll find the companies to invest in and you'll make money back. So the reason why a rich person does this is because if you're a rich person, you could put the money in the S&P 500 and double your money every 10 years, right? So if you know that as a rich person, which all of them do, they just do that. They'll put their money in there and it doubles every 10 years. But what they do is they'll take a little slice of that and say, let me risk this amount on something riskier that has higher returns like startups, right? So they'll, and startups, the venture capital firms go after what's called LPs, limited partners, who have that money, and they tell them, look, if this works, not only are you going to get more than 2x, you can get 1,000x, 500x if we hit on the right startup. So by giving us this money, we're going to put you in ideas that have a chance to skyrocket, and then your little slither that you were, gambling on making more than 2x, like all the rest of your money is doing, that could turn out to be a lot more of your portfolio. And that's has happened to people. So this is important to understand as a startup founder, because what it means is they can only invest in companies that they believe can do that, right? So if I'm a venture capitalist right now, I'm putting my venture capitalist hat on, and I'm raising money from LPs. Hey, Mr. Bill Gates, if you give me $10 million, I'll invest it in 100 companies, no, not 100 companies, whatever, 20 companies, whatever the numbers are. And that will hopefully bring you back at least 40 times the money. So remember, you're going to give me $1 million, I'm bringing you back 40 million. That's what they're telling the LPs. And the LPs understand the game. It's not like, oh, you're scamming. This is all normal in this world. So now I have the money from Bill Gates, Mark Cuban, all these people. Now I have to do what I said. So I can't put money into a company that is only going to go from 100,000 to 200,000, 500,000, $5 million. That's not the type of business I can invest in, because I need to give Mark Cuban, Bill Gates, and all these guys hundreds of millions of dollars back. So I need to go for companies that are going for home runs. So when you do that, though, that also means you have a high failure rate, because if you grow unnaturally fast, like if your company grows unnaturally fast, that's one of the main ways companies go out of business. So as a venture funded company, you're choosing to get into that rocket ship and say, it's either the mountain or space. We're either going right into a mountain and everybody's dying, or we're getting to space. But the percentage of companies that actually get to space is very small. And it's okay, because when we're going into the mountain, we'll eject and then possibly get another rocket down the line. And everybody's understanding of that, which is very interesting. You're more likely to raise money if you already had a startup that failed than if you didn't. That's super interesting when you think about it, right? Because again, these venture capitalists, they understand. They want to know you understand the game. They want to know you're de-risking their investment. And if you've already went through the process and failed, then you have information that a new founder doesn't, right? Because You know what you did to F up that last time, and you're not going to do it again. Versus the new person, you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's a lot to think through, right? So what that is called is growing at all costs. When you take that money, you need to try to grow the company as fast as possible. And this is why you got to keep raising money, because once you're going on it, you got to keep growing, 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 because the normal way it takes to raise to get a company from zero to $100 million company is the company has to start, then it has to start tripling its revenue every year. That's very hard. So imagine this. Check this out. First year, you do $100,000. Starting out, product market fit, figuring it out. Second year, you do 300,000. Third year, you do 1.2 million. Because that's, oh no, sorry, 900,000. Triple, triple, triple. Then you gotta keep tripling until you get to a point where then all you need is to double. So the way I heard it was, you have to create a company that once you hit product market fit, needs to triple 3 times and then double 2 times. And then you'll get to a point where you can possibly exit. So for 5 years, you need to triple, 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 double, double, and then you'll get to space. But that is very, very, very hard. You have a startup? Yes, I do. I have a startup called Stackit.ai. Join the waitlist, Stackit.ai/MSW. Check that out. I'll type it in the chat. So yeah, basically understanding that puts an unnecessary pressure on a business. And so again, somebody today on Twitter, when I posted this, that I was going to go live talking about this, they were like, is this even a question? Of course you want to raise $1 million. And now coming back to that and knowing what you know, based on what I've just been talking about, we're already making money. We're not, buying private jets or anything like that, but we are covering our cost. So why grow unnaturally and possibly go out of business because we're trying to grow unnaturally? So the only way I would take venture right now is if they were to take it on my terms, which is, we're going to have your money and we'll give it back to you. If we're not growing fast enough for you, we'll give it back to you. But we're not going to kill the company trying to grow too fast. And that, to me, is one of the biggest issues. Another big thing is, if you're not growing fast enough, there's 2 things that can happen. One is they can make you close the company. So with a venture-backed startup, this is interesting. A lot of people don't know this. If you reach a point where you have less than, I don't know if it's 60 days or 90 or 30, one of those, big difference, but 1 to 3 months of overhead cost, if you get below that, they make you close the company. You know why? At least from what I've heard. It hasn't happened to me, but this is what I've heard. Because if when the company's going out of business, you don't give enough of a heads up to your employees, they could sue you. And if they sue you, they're also suing your investors. So what happens is your investors, once you get to a certain point of overhead that you can no longer afford, they could put you in a position where you have to close the company so they don't get sued. So that's a thing that I've heard happen. I've heard other startups where it hasn't happened. I heard startups where it has. I'm not sure where it happens, what point, like maybe there's a certain level of investment where that starts to happen. But again, I think we are already starting to figure out product market fit. We have data that shows we're on the trajectory of it. So why take unnecessary risk if we don't need to, right? And again, one of the big things I tell investors, I tell everybody is, the idea that we're working on right now is too important to die for greed, right? At the end of the day, if this is not growing fast, it's fine. If we only grow 10% a year, the company will exist. It doesn't need to go out of business because we're not growing fast enough. And that is part of raising venture capital. You need to grow at a speed that gets you to $100 million business in 10 years. So that's why, It's not a no-brainer just to raise money. You have to understand that. Another thing that can happen, you should check out a movie on HBO. It's called Movie Pass, Movie Crash. What could happen is if you're not growing the company fast enough, and this tends to happen a lot with minority founders, they will replace you. They will take your company away from you and replace you. So you've seen this happen with big startups like Uber, and I think Uber's the biggest one I can think of right now, but it wasn't because the company wasn't growing fast. He just did something that the investors had to remove him because he was becoming bad press. But I've heard this many times from minority investors, or minority founders, that they've been removed from their startup because they weren't growing fast enough. And I'm a minority founder, so I got my headlights watching for that, and I'm like, I'm not signing nothing that allows me to get replaced because I'm not growing fast enough for you. Another thing is, you do also have to. There's all kind of compliance things once you raise money, right? You have to do certain things with the SEC. There's all kind of crazy things that you also have to start really paying attention to once you raise venture capital and or any investments really. But you can do something. This is where I'll give you something that does work. And if I had to, I'll probably use this right now. It's called a safe note. So what a safe note is, it was created by Y Combinator. Y Combinator is like the #1 startup accelerator in the world. They Uber, Airbnb, all those guys came out of it. Well, Uber came out of Techstars. Airbnb, Stripe, a bunch of these big companies came out of Y Combinator. They have something, a document that you can download for free. It's called the Safe Note. It means, I forgot what it means. Something, I forgot. Safe, something with equity. Let me find out exactly what it means. Safe definition. Safe note. Financial instrument. Simple agreement for future equity, right? So what it means is, you give a person this document, they're going to give you money. And what that means is you are going to give them equity in this business later, but you don't got to figure it out right now. The amount they gave you is based on where you are as a business. You can set kind of like a value of the company at the current moment. So if you take the, and you can download it free, it's on Y Combinator. Just check Safe Note and you can go find that and download it. So what that means is you could raise hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars using a Safe Note. But you still should understand what you're doing, because you could give away your whole company on Safe Notes. And we've seen people do this. They'll take Safe Note, Safe Note, Safe Note, and then they look up and they haven't done the math. So they've given away 70, 80% of their company. And now they're never going to be able to raise money or keep it going, because if you're that early in the business and you've already given away 80% of the business, nobody else is going to invest in you. So that means you're going to have to take the business all the way with just that first raised money. So again, I won't go too deep into all that kind of stuff, but it's good to understand these things, especially because I know a lot of people about to become entrepreneurs. I think a lot of this AI stuff is going to create entrepreneurs. I think the job market is going to create more entrepreneurs, and everybody's always saying, oh, I'll come up with an idea, raise money, not knowing what it really takes. And again, I'm going through right now. I'm having conversations, so I'm able to talk about it. I have some notes. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything on that. Also, it is a loan. So even on a Safe Note, there's different options. So when someone gives you money, they're lending you this money. So don't think they give you money, it either works or it doesn't. Again, kind of yes, because if you got a business, they're not going to come after your car or your house. They understand these things go bad most of the time, and they're okay with that. So they allow it. But if it does work and you are continuing to stay alive, their money could collect interest depending on how you took the money. A lot of venture capitalists do have an interest on the money they gave you. So If it takes you more than 10 years, then you're growing the interest that you have to pay them back plus the return that they were expecting. So I think a lot of people do not understand that it's a loan. When you raise money from a venture capitalist or an investor, period, it is a loan. You got to pay it back. So you got to figure out how you're going to make the money to pay it back. And that usually comes by exiting the business. So this is another big thing that I think not enough people understand. When you take money, especially from venture capitalists, but most investors, the way they normally get their money back is when you sell the company, right? So let's say I create this company Stack. We have it. It's a $100 million company. The way it normally works is it's not that you take the profits and pay your investors back. You could if you set it up that way, but most of the time is they either go public to the stock market or they sell to a bigger company like Amazon. You'll see it. Microsoft acquires XYZ. Amazon acquires. That's what's happening. They're exiting to Amazon. Amazon is paying for, just like I told you about WhatsApp. WhatsApp exited to Facebook. That's how the investors got their money back. They put up millions. Facebook gave them $19 billion, and the investors got their money back and then some. But that's not normal. That's a very, very, very rare case. So what you got to understand is less than 1% of companies exit. So you understand that, right? So, and everybody knows it. The investors know it. Most startup founders know it. So if you take this money, you're choosing to be in a pool of 99% failure rate. And I don't feel like right now we need that because we are currently keeping our expenses low and our fees are growing over time and we are able to cover our costs. And we're growing user base in different countries now. We got US, we got South America, we got Europe, and we're growing them slowly. And eventually, once we grow those regions, we'll have more money to spend on more regions, right? So that's the current plan. And of course, I'm not going to say you may see any day that Miguel raised money and be like, oh, all that you were talking. The truth is the devil's in the details. And by being in that Laconia Ventures fellowship, I learned the devil's in the details. But if you know the details, you could really work up a deal that makes sense for you. And that's the only way I'm signing a deal is if it makes sense for everybody on the team. So what am I leaning towards? Of course, you maybe understand right now, I am leaning towards not taking money, but I'll be honest, there's days where I wake up and I'm like, am I being dumb? You know how hard it is to raise money? And everybody always says it, like, if you can raise money, raise money. And to me, I don't do the easy thing anyway. If you know me, I always do the harder version of everything. So I'd rather fail on my own terms, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want somebody else to determine if this idea failed. Right now, we are good. Actually, let me tell you another reason why I don't need the money. This is actually a big reason. The way Stack works is, if you don't know what Stack is, you take money that you were going to spend, you deposit it into Stack, which is your own self-custody wallet on, if you know crypto, you have a Ledger, MetaMask, Coinbase wallet. You deposit the money and it creates a wallet that's controlled by your wallet. And then it borrows from that money and it invests it. So you deposit money that's going to be invested into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and you borrow. So what that means is you have collateral and you have a loan. Already, Stack as a company has multiple six-figure wallets. So not just one six-figure wallet, we have multiple six-figure wallets, because every time money comes in, we bring it into Stack, we borrow to pay our expenses. So we are able to borrow off of our own banks. We basically created our own banks the same way we do for our customers. We did it for ourselves, right? So every time we get fees, we stack our fees and we borrow off of our collateral to pay our expenses. And over time, Bitcoin and Ethereum have grown, so our wallets are bigger than the amount of money we put into them. And that's the whole idea of Stack. And that's why we want to work with entrepreneurs in general, because again, we're solving our own problem. Right now, we do not need money because we did this. If we didn't do this, we would have some extra money. But right now, we have a lot of extra money because we've been doing this since we started. So now we have a lot of money sitting in wallets that we can borrow from at any time, or close the wallet and have enough money for years at this point, right? Because profit, as it grows, it turns into more money. And this is where the idea of Stack is really important for entrepreneurs and creatives. If you are a creative or an entrepreneur, and you know how, and I know how it is, like you want to leave that job and do your own creative pursuit, or leave that company and create your own company, but you don't got the money. You need to get investors. Well, we don't. Right now, we don't. If we want to grow it at the pace we're growing, we don't. But if we wanted to grow like super duper fast and grow like 30% a month and 3x a year, we probably do have to raise money. But again, that puts us on a trajectory of more than possibly failing. So again, I'm personally right now leaning towards not, and just keep growing our wallet. And if we'll get it as high as we can. We know the market goes up and down, and it usually goes all the way up and then comes all the way down. And we're mapping all that out to keep as much of the money as possible for the bear market. But we will see. We will see how it goes, and I'll keep you guys posted. Thank you for watching. Wherever you watch or listen, because it'll be a podcast as well, Miguel Sanchez World. Thank you for coming through. And again, if you have any questions about any of this or comments on anything I said, and I know this is like complicated stuff, a lot of people don't know it, DM me, put it in the comments, whatever, I'll answer. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. I'm everywhere. Instagram. So to end it, I would love for people that are entrepreneurs to join our waitlist, stackit.ai/MSW, or creatives. If you want to, create that business as a side hustle right now, or create your art, your art show, but it's going to cost money, I can show you how you could be investing and spending your money and get to that goal faster. So join the waitlist, stackit.ai/MSW. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.